What's my question for the day? Are we on? Okay, yeah, I know. The heat is getting to me a little bit. Oh, hello guys. How are you doing? I hope you're having a really good day. Today's project is going to be on this 14-inch round wood surface. These boards, I do offer them, and they are extremely thin. So just beware of that. It's about 1/8 of an inch, close to that. But they are 14 inches round, and they're great surfaces to paint on. This particular one is probably could be a door wreath. You could whip one up for your neighbor or your best friend. Someone that might enjoy having it hanging in their kitchen, or I usually put these signs in my kitchen hanging on my side of my refrigerator, because everybody uses the garage door here. So they come through the big garage door, they come through the smaller garage door into my kitchen, and immediately they see the refrigerator, and then there's a welcome sign there. They can go on the front door as well. Okay, so for today's project, we're gonna paint the background just a really beautiful, clean white. And we are going to use a 1-inch, it's called a wash, if you're in Texas. It's a 1-inch wash brush. And you just want to make sure it's damp. Make sure there's no drips here. And if you want, because white paint is so thick, and no matter, a lot of times, no matter what brand you're using, a lot of times that white is extra thick. So I'm gonna water mine down a little bit. This is just a personal preference because the paint flows better on your surface. Add a little bit more water using my stir brush. Okay, I think that's gonna do it. We're just gonna give this a nice white coat. We may end up giving it 2 coats, we'll see. Just see how much. Sometimes I like the wood grain to bleed through. And I know this is the time you're supposed to speed up your recording, but we're just not there yet. So I guess if this gets old or boring, you could probably just fast forward it, right? But all I'm doing is, as I apply the paint and before it completely dries, I go back over it again. This just gives you a nice smooth surface. You could probably even catch any drips you might have on the side. That just makes it a cleaner look. Just using that 1-inch brush. These really come in handy. Matter of fact, I just ordered a few more. I had allowed the grandkids and the great-grandkids, when they would come over to paint, some of my good brushes, and ended up in the assortment of their brushes. I'm not quite sure how that happened. Maybe I just didn't care that day, I don't know. And so I'm finding now that I'm trying to do a little bit more work every day with brushes, that I needed to buy some more. And of course, I've told you in past videos, but Walmart online, I don't know about the store. I'm pretty sure it's at the store, could come to think about it, because when I ask for delivery, a lot of times they have delivered the packages of brushes. Now there is one package of brushes that I ordered from them, but it's going to be shipped. but it's by Royal Lang Nickel, and they're excellent brushes. They are not that expensive either on Walmart online, which is surprising because, a 1-inch brush like this, a few years back, I would probably pay close to $8 maybe for it. And the package that I ordered, one of the packages that I ordered had 3 or 4 of these in there, along with 4, 5, 6 other brushes for $9. So you can't beat that. Used to, when I went to Hobby Lobby quite often, back in the day, I would pick up brushes there. They had them reasonably priced. They weren't too bad. Now there are some brushes out there that are terribly, terribly expensive. I've never used those really expensive ones. But then again, I don't like to use the real cheap ones either, because they don't give you that contour that you're looking for when you're, let's say you're using a number, that's a 3. There's my 5. And again, I've talked about this before, but it bears repeating. This is a number 4 or 5 round brush, and I've used it a lot in the last month or so, and it's still keeping its shape really nicely. Now there's a lot of other brushes out there that do similar to what we do on the in class, and I just don't use those type of brushes too often. There's one that is called, I think it's a shader. It's kind of a squared off brush. Now every blue moon I'll use a shader. This one's really small, but it's kind of square or rectangle shape. The little bit larger one, I'll use to, let's say if I'm wanting to do a checkerboard, it really works out good for making squares. Okay, I think we're gonna let that dry, and I'll decide if I'm gonna do a second coat on it or not. Although I did do it basically right there. Okay, we'll be back in a minute. All right, I'm doing the edges right now, and I need to show y'all. I think I've showed you before, but we'll show you again. When you're doing an edge, let's see if we can get you to see this. The front is dry, and so I can obviously hold it. So on a skinny edge like this, I'm just going to come in here and do just small sections at a time. And the reason for it is you want to come back on the opposite side and brush any ridges out, because that's the number one way of you getting ridges when you're trying to paint the side of something. So I just come in here and just brush them lightly down. Okay, let's try it again here. Can you see? I think you can. All right, just tap in the side. Just getting those edges nice, and then come back on the opposite, on your main side, and just lightly brush. Get any ridges off. And I do the same on the back side. I know it's the back, and it's not supposed to matter to most, but it does to me. So I come in there and I try to move those paint ridges. Just make sure I don't have any. Okay, let's do it one more time. Come in here and touch on the side, the little white paint. See if you can see that. Yep, okay. Just touching on the sides, short little strokes, not too long of a surface that I'm covering because you don't want it to dry. So immediately go back on the front area and catch any of those ridges of paint. And then on the back, just brushing out any ridges. I hope you can see. I know my hand's getting in the way, but this size of a board. Okay, I'll be back in a minute. Okay, I decided to go ahead and do a second coat, and it's still a little damp, so we're gonna let that dry a little bit longer. But it does bring up a point. These very thin boards, when you're putting obviously a water-based type paint on them, they're gonna bow a little bit, and it's okay, not a big deal. Because once I paint the front of this and then I paint the back, a solid color on the back obviously, then let it dry really well. A lot of times that straightens them flat out again. There's been a couple of times they didn't go straight. They still had a little bit of a bow. So I just put one, of course, once the paint and everything was dry, I just put a heavy book on it for like a day or so, and then it was fine. And it straightened right out. But keep that in mind if you do want to order some of these 14-inch round boards from me. They're only 1/8 inch thick, and they will bow a little bit after putting a water-based paint on them. But it's not a problem. Okay, another thing it brings up is I use, when I'm doing a project that's more of a crafty type project like this one, I will use an acrylic spray that like Krylon makes, and I usually go for either matte or I go with semi-gloss, and that way it will keep your painting just like perfectly nice, especially if they keep it in the house, or you keep your painting in the house. But a semi-gloss or a matte finish just finishes it off very nicely. I use my garage and I have a cardboard out there, and when I'm totally finished painting front and back, I take it out there and I spray it. But if the board is bowing, I do not spray it until I get that bow out. So I put a book on it for a couple of days or a day, and it straightens out, and then I spray it and we're good to go. The other thing is these, well, when you're, I don't know, you may be familiar with it or not, but if you're painting a sign on a piece of board to go outside, your best bet is to use a thick board, obviously, at least a 1/2 inch thick. You could probably go with a 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch, if not thicker. That's best for outside, as well as you will need to put quite a few coats after you paint your project on that board and you're ready to put it outside. You really need to put a really strong lacquer on top, and the sides and the back side as well. You could use a polyurethane and use those sponge brushes and brush it on. But I suggest strongly that, of course, you do it in a well-ventilated like garage or outside somewhere, but is that once it dries, you take your sponge brush and you're using, let's say that polyurethane, and you're going one direction, and then let it dry, and then turn your project, whatever it is. If it's going outside, turn your project the opposite way. In other words, brush on another coat of polyurethane, and what that does is give it a weave, what I've heard them call it a weave before. That just really seals your wood well. And of course you got to do the sides, and then you've got to do the back side of your project before you put it outside. And keep in mind, they don't make polyurethane like they used to. So unless you hang your project or your sign in the shade, you'll probably have to brush polyurethane on it again the next year. Years ago, I remember using polyurethane and oh my goodness, stuff, even on pottery pots, clay pots, man, it would last. It would last 3 or 4 years at least. And well, not anymore. I've got signs out front, out back in the garden that just, they never make it past a year. And if it's something I put a lot of work into, then I'll take them down, clean them off, and then I'll polyurethane them again and then put it back out. But I have a garden sign, a really huge one out hanging on my fence. That one's always been in the shade. And no matter what, it's always in the shade, very, very thick shade. And I did polyurethane it several times before I put it out there because it took me a long time to make that sign. And it's been out there now going on 9 years. And I just noticed the other day, it's starting to have like flaking off of the paint. So the polyurethane obviously is worn off over, you know, rain and snow and all that stuff. But because it's in the shade, it's lasted a very, very long time. Okay, that was long and drawn out, but it's dry. Okay, so the pattern today is this pretty wild looking flowers. Just another fun project to do. This is my pattern. Now you can freehand yours and it will work out just fine. So right now what I'm looking at is I want to make sure my welcome, which you can always turn your sign a little bit and it would be straight on there. But that's what I'm looking at right now as I line up how I'm going to do my pattern. And is my welcome font straight? What do you think, guys? Is it straight? I think it's straight. I'm gonna stand up and look. In doing so, I'm going to take paint bottles and hold that down. And looking at the top, just gonna move it just a little bit. Now I'm looking to see if my font on the edge of the board is about that distance. You can use your ruler, and that's good. Now if this was for a customer and I had to be very specific, then I would use my ruler. But eyeballing it, I think it works out nicely. I'm gonna pull this down just a little bit more. All right, I think that's it. All right, let's move these paint bottles. Now I'm holding my pattern. Of course, I have a fan going on in here. I'm gonna hold my pattern with one hand. And since the painting is going to be a lot of bright colors and strong colors, and the word welcome is gonna be in black, unless I change my mind, but I'm thinking black, then I'm gonna go ahead and use the dark color graphite paper because strong colors cover it very well as the black will cover it. And when you're putting it under your pattern, you want the shiny side on your surface. You want the dull side touching underneath your pattern. Okay, so I'm gonna hold this with my wrist. I'm gonna pull this up, and with the shiny side down, I'm gonna slide this as far as I can. Right there. Now I'm gonna hold it with this hand. It's a little trick to this, but you can get it done. Now I'm gonna hold up the other side. lay another graphite paper down, and it catches there. Now it doesn't catch down here, and I could, you know, do all that and then put one here. I find it so much simpler just to make sure I have graphite paper everywhere I need it. So again, the shiny side down, that's the shiny side, this is the dull side. Holding it with my right hand, I'm gonna slide the graphite paper underneath there. There we go. Now, we're totally covered in graphite paper. We're on our board. We hope our pattern's on there straight enough. Now I'm gonna grab a stylus. Now it's up to you. One of the little tricks about doing a pattern, if it has a lot of busyness, there's a lot of stuff on here, and let's say your phone rings or the timer goes off on the stove and you've got to get up, then always have a pencil on hand. So before you know, and of course you want to put a weight on here so it doesn't move, but you take a pencil and you just mark a little spot, and that tells you this is where I, you know, where I ended. All right. Now if this was a bigger board and this project was in the center, I could very easily just tape this pattern down, and that would make life even more simpler. All right, so I'm gonna start over here, and I know my hand's gonna be in the way, and I'm sorry. All this is a big old circle with a little squirrely thing in the middle, and then we have some leaves. And you don't have to do the line that's in the leaf. I just try to add that line in the vein of the leaf on the pattern so people know that's what it is. All right, now I'm just gonna, I've done a couple of pieces. I just want to check myself, and sure enough, are you seeing it, or am I off a little bit? Yeah, so it's working. Got the graphite right. Yeah, there's nothing like doing like a huge porch sign, which I love to do those. I've got a really very large scripture sign hanging in my foyer, and you never want to be out of the habit of checking yourself. You know, after you do maybe a couple of lines of words, or maybe just one line, to be honest with you, just one line, and then holding your pattern in place and check yourself. Don't ask me how I know. Oh my goodness, I have done patterns before, whipping right on through it, back and forth, man, we got it. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I haven't checked. And the graphite paper was turned wrong, and so the pattern just ends up being on the back side of your pattern. Yeah, not fun. All right, I'm gonna go offline and finish just filling in all this, and I'll be back. All right, so the pattern is on here, and you know how we plan things, and sometimes they don't quite work out right. When I'm looking at the welcome, it's going up a little bit. See, gotta point out that boo-boo. I thought I had come down enough. So it's kind of like that. And even if I turn and use this, if I end up using this as a wreath for the front door or to give to a friend, I would put 2 holes up here and then run a ribbon. And you can even decorate it with greenery if you want, but that's another story. But even if I do that, it's still cockeyed, and even I can see that. So how you fix that? Now you could go and erase all that welcome off. Then you'd probably end up having to put white paint back there again, because when you use an eraser, even the pink square or rectangle eraser, you know, the one's called pink eraser. Sometimes it'll leave on painted projects like a weird smudge. So what I end up having to do if I'm having to erase and it's very noticeable, then I would go back with the background color to cover that. But in this case, what I'll do is let me see, get my liner brush to point at it. What I'll do is I'll cause when I start painting in the letters, excuse me, I'll bring the M down a smidge more, just down here at the base, and then I'll bring the O up a little bit over here. And I'll probably bring the E down just a little bit. And that'll kind of be an illusion to the eye, and you won't be able to tell so much that it's a little cockeyed. Another way to fix a problem. Oh, thank goodness we can fix some things. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start on this flower first, right here. This is a turquoise color flower with a yellow center, and then we'll add a little something in the center once that's painted. But in using turquoise, no matter how many coats I put here, it's not gonna cover that graphite line very well. So what I'm gonna do is my first coat, I'm gonna mix a little bit of white and turquoise together, because anything with white in it is gonna cover things very well. It's so much easier to do it that way. Do your first coat with white mixture in your main color, and then do it, once you do that first base coat, usually that works. Sometimes you might have to do a second base coat of that same color mixture, and then use your regular color on top. Okay, so we're gonna do that real quick. I'm using ceramic coat, and it's just called turquoise, Delta ceramic coat. So we'll put a little bit there, and a little bit of the plain will be here. And we will add a little bit of white. Using my stirring brush, adding a little water to it, because as always, we need water, especially if you use white. That way you're not struggling so hard to get your paint on your surface. All right, let's see if that's gonna cover up that graphite for me. And here, if you notice, the font, the L in welcome is over this flower. I'm just gonna go in and I'm not gonna try to avoid it. I'm just gonna paint the whole petal one color, and then I can always put, eyeball it and put that letter back right here, or use the pattern again and lay it on top. All right, so let's just come in here, and I'm using a number 5 round brush. And again, when you are painting a surface, you always want to make sure first your brush is damp and no water up in here. You grab you a little bit of paint. I usually just touch it right near the side, and when I'm ready to go to the side here, let's see if I can, when I'm ready to go to the side, I'm going to press that brush down, and if you notice, when you press it down gently, those hairs or bristles start to spread out a little bit. And if you aim it just right, it'll catch that edge for you. If you go over it a little bit, it's okay. Not gonna hurt a thing. So when you're practicing at your painting, if you're using a liner brush or a round brush or a filbert, you'll learn that brush, what it is capable of doing in your hands. It just takes a little bit of practice. You think, oh my gosh, this is too much. I won't learn all this. Sure you will. Yep. I used to be very intimidated by all the magazines I would get. I had quite a few subscriptions you could only imagine. And back in the day, and those magazines, those subscriptions, along with Bob Ross, they were my teachers. And I would be at home, kids would all be in school, my husband would be at work, and I would practice and practice, and I'd read the instructions again, and I'd practice again, and I'd get mad and frustrated, and then I'd throw my painting away or hide it. And sure enough, all of a sudden it just, I can't tell you, it just started happening. Of course, a lot of prayer too. Just praying, okay, Lord, show me how to do this, please. All right. And since this one is really, this petal here is underneath there, I should have done this already. It's a little bit of blend work that we're gonna do, not much. The next session we're gonna go back to doing some practicing blending. I'm grabbing a little bit of brown spice. I would rather use the brown and the turquoise than black. And I need to mix a little bit of a dark color, so I'm taking a little bit of the brown. I'll take a little bit of that turquoise. And we're just gonna darken it up a little bit. Let's do it a little bit more. Needs to be somewhat of a contrast. A little bit of water. Okay, that's a good color. It's just a warm turquoise color. Okay, we're going to use, right next to that petal, I'll use a little bit of that brown turquoise mixture, just so this one stands out. Grabbing that white and turquoise color, finishing off the petal. You kind of think of it, the petals on a flower are just like a leaf when you're painting a leaf. Same thing, same concept. Just little short strokes. If you try to put, like if you get in a big hurry and you try to put too much paint down at once, you're gonna end up with ridges, or your first coat is not gonna be nice and smooth. And you really can't get rid of that other than sanding it and starting over. So your best bet is your base coat is nice as you can make it, which is just a little bit of paint and short little strokes. And while it's still wet, I'm just touching over it again to make sure I don't have any ridges of paint. All right, I'm coming close to that edge. I'm filling up my brush with that turquoise and light color. Now I'm just gonna press. Yeah, okay. Making sure y'all could see this. I'm just gonna press and let that bristle grab a hold of that edge. Grab a little bit more of that turquoise and white. Yeah. Now if I wanted to smooth it out, because it's a little bumpy and it doesn't matter, but I'm just being picky. So I will go right back over that really slow, and it'll catch some of those bumps. There you go, easy peasy. Okay, gonna work on this lopsided petal right here. It's okay, it's just a fun project. It's not anything serious. And if you wanted to, come to think about it, so the center pops, you could do dark underneath that as well. And so let's just do that. Let me finish this at the top. We'll take a little bit of that turquoise and brown, put it right underneath the center of that flower. Just little short strokes just to kind of straighten out any ridges. Not cleaning my brush, grab the turquoise and white. Just dab right next to that. See, it creates like a shadow. And then once we do the center, it's gonna make that center pop like it's up. Now, just little short strokes using the turquoise and white. Okay, remember always just to move your work around if you can, so you can get nice smooth edges. If your hand is shaking, then your petal will have a little bit of a rough edge, and you know what? That's okay. Not gonna hurt a thing. Don't forget, guys, listen to good teachers, good music while you're painting. So relaxing. So relaxing. All right, we're gonna do one more while we're online here. This one, of course, is underneath this petal here. So I'm still using the turquoise and white. Straighten that petal out a little bit. Just short little strokes. Grabbing a little bit of that turquoise and brown. Go right underneath that petal right there. Take it right on around the center of the flower. And straighten out those little paint marks there a little bit. Not going to clean my brush, just going right into that turquoise and white. And just dab next to that turquoise and brown. Now I'm going to rinse off, wipe off your brush, and while that's still wet, just barely tap right there. Just little taps. Kind of gets rid of that perfect line. Grabbing the turquoise and white, catching the edge. Again, just filling up my brush just a little bit. Let me show you. All I'm doing is, again, and the rule of thumb is halfway up your bristles. That's all you want to load your paintbrush up. And see, mine's working its way up further. So after this petal, I'm going to rinse my brush out real good. But just dab a little bit and do small sections. Honestly, it works out so much better that way. But if you find that you get a ridge on one of your edges, instead of, you could make the edge a little bigger then. But you can, I think I've showed y'all this before. See if I can get a ridge on here, and I'll show you what I'm talking about, what you can do. All right, catching that edge. Now, see if I can get a ridge on there. No, maybe not. My hand won't let me do it. If you had a ridge of paint right there, okay? All you do is take a clean finger and push it towards the petal. Push it towards the inside of where you're painting. And that'll move that ridge. I hope that makes sense. I'm gonna straighten up that petal just a little bit. Just so it gets a little round going on there. There we go. Okay, I'm gonna finish the petals offline and I'll be back, guys. All right, I'm jumping back on here to show you something real quick before I finish. See, this petal is under both of these, so we need that turquoise and brown on both sides. So I'm taking the turquoise and white, going right down the middle. Give me something to work with. I'm not gonna rinse my brush. I'm gonna touch on that brown and turquoise. And just put it right underneath that side right there. Using that number 5 round brush. Rinsing my brush, wipe it off. And just barely little taps. Just a little light blending, not much. Oh, because we're going to go over it again with the regular turquoise. But this is just the first coat. Same thing. We're going to put that turquoise and brown underneath that petal. Now that turquoise light that I put there is already dry on that side. So I'll grab a little bit more turquoise and white. Run it up next to it, rinse my brush, dry it off, and just barely tap. That blends it out a little bit. That's all we're looking for. The next one, that one's on top, and this side of it is underneath, so you'll do the same thing. Okay, I went ahead and did these all in the regular turquoise. Left one to do with y'all. Just grabbing my number 5 round brush. I dampen it slightly and wipe it off. And then grabbing some of that turquoise. Looks like this one's on top of both of those. So again, just grab a little bit of paint. No need to be in a really big hurry. I'm gonna grab some of that light turquoise and highlight that edge a little bit. Grabbing the regular turquoise and filling all that in. Nice little strokes. That way your base coat and then your top coat is nice and smooth. Now most paints have a self-leveler, but not as much as, I mean, acrylics do have it to some degree, but not like latex house paint, which has a, you know, major leveler in it. In other words, the paint levels out. Where on acrylic, it levels a little bit, but not much. So you always just want to apply small amounts to small areas. I'm going to grab a little bit of that light turquoise and put it on the side here. I think it's drying up. I'm going to have to water that down. Put it on the side. Then rinse your brush. Wipe it off with a damp brush. I'm just going to touch it just to break it up a little bit. And really, probably for it to really pop, I need to put a little bit light, make that light turquoise a little lighter. But for a fun project like this, that will do. Now I did this spot down here in the light turquoise. I did 2 coats, and I'm just going to leave it light. It complements this color up here, and like we talked about before, it's usually best to decide on like 4 or 5 colors and to do a painting. And I do that even on a large canvas. Unless I'm working with a pour paint, that's a little bit different. Sometimes I do only work with 4 or 5 colors. Sometimes I work with more on a pour, but on a regular painting, I find, for me, the rule of thumb works well if I stick with 4 to 5 colors. And then, if I need a darker shade of that one color I'm choosing, then I'll just add brown or black to it, or even dark blue to it to darken it up. That way the colors all end up complementing each other one way or the other. Hopefully that makes sense. Now, I know there's a swirl here, but when we go back and do outlining in black, I'll put that swirl in there. All right, this flower here, now let's go ahead and do this swirl here. This swirl right here is yellow. So yellow being a translucent color, it is gonna need some white in it first, just like we did the turquoise, to cover up the graphite lines. So I got me some yellow, and I'm gonna put a little bit of white in here, and using my stir brush. Of course, it's gonna be dirty water of turquoise colors, but it's not gonna hurt a thing once you mix it all up. You really can't tell. I know y'all are gonna get tired of hearing me say this, but as always, put water in your paints. You wanna thin them out. They need to be the consistency of a loose gravy. That way it's easier to apply the paint to your surface and you don't have to struggle so hard. Okay, the white and yellow is ready to go. Now I'm gonna water down the yellow a little bit. Straight yellow. A little bit more. Here we go. All right, using the white yellow, all I'm gonna do is fill in this round circle. Oh, my brush is not clean enough. Let's try that again. The second coat will take care of that. A little bit of turquoise showed up. Just gonna make a circle. It's supposed to be like a whimsy looking flower. Getting the edges and then brushing it out so I don't have any ridges. Just short little strokes. Grabbing that yellow-white mixture. Letting my brush get close to that edge and cover up that graphite line. I think I'm gonna definitely need 2 coats of the light yellow. Because I can see it bleeding through a little bit. Well, it's not really bleeding through, but it's showing up. Let's get a little closer here. Here we go. All right, and this one down here is yellow as well. So since we've got our brush full of yellow-white, we might as well jump down here and do that. Now in a regular painting, if you're doing a landscape painting, you want to always work from far away from you and come towards you. But in something like this, it's just a fun little painting. You can jump around. It's not going to hurt a thing. And actually, I have made this once before when I had a paint class in my house, and a bunch of ladies came, and I whipped out one of these while they were working on their projects. They all had a choice of 3 different round wood wreaths, pictures to choose from, and most of them seemed to choose. It was really interesting how they, like 2 or 3 would choose exactly the same one, and then 3 other ones all were different. Anyway, it worked out nice. We had a good time. One of the times, one of my girls came and brought breakfast, and so we ended up having a nice little brunch. And I had a few things out for him as well as coffee, and it was really a nice morning, very nice. Usually a class like that takes about 3 hours, and everybody's chit-chatting and laughing, and I mean, you couldn't ask for a better time. It really is nice. All right, that yellow has to dry. This one is almost dry. I can still see a little bit of the light showing. It's still a little wet, so we'll give it another minute. All right, we will work on the center here. That one's yellow. So I'm using the light yellow here. Get as close to the edge as you can. Using your brush and press. Allow those bristles, just press slightly, and you can see them spread out, and they're going to grab that line for you. All I'm doing is little short strokes, making sure I don't have any lumps of paint there. Turning my work so it's easier to get the sides or the edges. I know a lot of folks, my friends, some of my friends on Facebook, they're already talking and showing stuff of fall. So I think we'll get a fall project coming pretty soon. I've got a request for a big bumblebee. And I haven't forgotten about the rock, Lisa. It's on my list. Yeah, my friend, she's a sweetheart, and she wants to do painting on a rock. I've done some rock painting. It all started because of my granddaughter, and I think I told the story before. And my great-granddaughter, and she was coming over. I didn't have any surfaces for her to, she loves to paint. And I was out of almost everything for her size to paint on. And then I saw on Pinterest somebody painting on a rock, and I'm like, oh my gosh. So anyway, yeah, I've done some garden rocks, and then my son, with a bunch of friends, had a huge garage sale and actually sold some in the garage sale, which some know that story. I was like, ain't nobody gonna buy a rock with paint on it. And actually, I got an order last week from a wonderful young lady, and she wanted a rabbit painted on hers, and I mailed the box off today to her. It's done. Who knew? It wasn't a really big rock, but it was big enough. It was 4 pounds. I think 4 pounds and 10 ounces. So, sure enough, she wanted a rock. I love it when I'm wrong like that. All right, just trying to get that edge. Sorry, I went off in my own little world there for a minute and picked it up, and all I'm doing is trying to get that edge to cover up a little bit more. Yeah, let's paint this one again. Just another coat. And when you add white to your base coat color, like we did here with the yellow, and on previous videos we've done that, and it's still not covering up really well, then just add more white. And then, you know, make another mixture and or add more white to your mixture. Oh, the dog wants in. Yeah, I'm still seeing the lines. See? still lines. I'm gonna have to add a little bit more white to my mixture. But you know, come to think about it, when I put the black lines in, it should hide all that. All right, we're gonna paint this one again. The center of this flower, using the light yellow. Even though there's not any lines here, just like to go in and base coat it with 2 coats of light yellow, and then we'll go in with the regular. Short strokes, guys, just short little strokes. No reason to get in a big hurry. That way when it dries, it'll be a nice smooth base. Yeah. All right, I'll be back. I'm just gonna put a little bit more white in the yellow and go right back over these 2 yellow ones again, because my black line going around it may not catch all the lines. I'll be back.